Good Tuesday to you again, everybody in COM 651. Welcome to the review of your first PR presentation. I remain your dedicated, sufficiently caffeinated instructor who's still enjoying his tasty, because I got like a whole pot full of the stuff, all right? Okay, so in this video, as I mentioned in the first video, let's take a look at your PR assignment, your number one. And let me give you some feedback about things to do and to not to do, okay, as you move into the second one. Okay, now you have a word limit, and the second one I've bumped it up a little bit from 1,000 to 2,000. All right, but you don't have to max out the word limit. Okay, in business, less is more. So try to be as succinct as you can. Okay, which brings me to my the first thing by way of feedback that I want you to avoid. You do not need to explain that, you don't need to explain what research is, what some authors say about why research is important. Imagine yourself sitting in a business boardroom. Okay. You're not going to convince them by defining what business research, public research, PR research is. You're not teaching a class. All right. You're trying to convince them as to why research for their company is the right way to go. So since you've got a word limit, avoid going into a discussion of what research is. Now, for this video, I'm going to read a passage or two or three from your papers. And I'm not picking on anybody. I'm using this as an example. All right. So if you recognize your stuff, okay, I'm not going to give anybody's name. All right. Nobody sees any other buddy's papers. Okay. So here's what I'm talking about. So here, this person, there's an introductory paragraph. And again, because you have a word limit, try to be concise, to be tight. So actually, let me read the introductory paragraph. Backcountry, a once prominent online retailer in outdoor clothing and equipment, faces challenges in low sales and a struggling public perception, necessitating a new approach to its public relations strategy. Okay, let's just take a look at that first sentence. All right, now you've got a word limit. Okay, it's like filling up the cup. There's only so much you can put in there. What can you throw out that you really don't need? You don't need a once prominent online retailer in outdoor clothing and equipment. You can say backcountry.com, an online retailer of clothing, outdoor clothing and equipment, faces challenges in low sales. Okay, you could say backcountry.com, sales in cite the quarter are low. Sales have dropped by blankety blank between blankety blank and blankety blank, period. Okay, be concise. That's the first thing that I want you to do, because you do have a word limit. And again, although I've raised it for the second one, don't try to hit it. Try to get under it. All right, let me continue. The company's decline in sales highlights a potential disconnect between the company's brand presentation and the perception of the stakeholders. Don't need any of that. A comprehensive public relations strategy grounded in thorough research and analysis is needed to help Backcountry reshape perception, build brand affinity, and drive sales growth. This strategy can help pave the way for advertising campaigns and return to profitability. Okay, so what could you take out of those four sentences that make up that first paragraph? Think about brevity. All right, next. According to Stacks, research is critical to establishing ethical and accurate public relations practices. The authors state public relations research should be ongoing, a consistent process of gathering and analyzing data that is both quantitative and qualitative. Okay, so now here the author is defining what research is. You don't need that. You're talking to your company about this company. So your company is in the business of research. Everybody in the room is going to be knowing this already. That is, that research is important. That's how you make your money. Let me, here's a little side story. When I first got into the business of humanitarian media, I made some assumptions that turned out to be catastrophically wrong. I assumed that any media campaign that I set up, and give you a little bit of background, I worked almost exclusively with non-Western companies across Asia, the Middle East, and the continent of Africa, crafting media campaigns designed to raise money primarily in Western countries like Europe and the United States. Okay. And I made the mistake of assuming that if I set up a media campaign, and I would help build a website, and I would write articles, and I would book appearances on media platforms, either for myself or representatives from the company, I made the mistake of assuming that all the traffic, the increased traffic in people asking them questions and people giving them money and people wanting more detail, getting excited about what they did, that I assumed that the organization was in a position to handle all of that increased traffic that I would be driving from Western countries. And I got, I had a client, I got into a job in the country of Zambia in which, those assumptions crashed head on with reality. And I put together a very successful public relations campaign that drove a lot of traffic, money, questions, and interest to the organization. And they had zero capacity to handle it. And as such, it failed miserably. In fact, it failed worse than failure because not only did the people not get their answers, not only did some of them wondered where their money went. Was this like a Nigerian princess scam? They got nothing in the way of feedback. They didn't get anything in the way of did my money actually make a difference for these people? And the organization worked heavily in the medical field with people who had full-blown AIDS, not just the HIV virus, and then helping them manage that disease. And the donors like, did any of this money make it to anybody? Okay, the campaign really hurt the organization because it blew up in terms of the public's response, and then the discussion in the public about what this organization wasn't doing, it just crashed down. And within 1 quarter, the net effect of the campaign was less money than when we started. And the organization was very angry, and they were angry with guess who? I have worked with many organizations that have had campaigns that have worked, or not worked at all. I've worked with very few organizations that blame themselves. So I realized that I started to retool my business approach. And before I crafted a PR campaign, before I crafted a donation campaign, I did something that I called capacity assessment. I sat down with key stakeholders, people that I knew were going to be gatekeepers for information and funds coming in. And I knew were going to be responsible responders, you might say, for thank yous and acknowledgement and tax documents going out. And without telling them what I was doing, all right, I told the heads of the organization what I was going to be doing, but I didn't tell the members. I sat down and just had what seemed like an informal chat, but I had some very specific questions built into that chat that gave me information about their abilities and their capacity. And then I got a much better picture as to what this organization could or couldn't handle. And then before we started, I went back to the heads of the organization and I said, look, let me show you some data about what we anticipate by way of increase in traffic and money. Now let me give you my assessment of where your personnel rank on, and I used a quantitative scale on responsiveness based on what they told me and based on what I can see from their past history. And when there was a big mismatch, I'd say, look, before we start this campaign, you need to fix this, or we need to lower the expectations of the campaign if you can't, change these people out. Okay. I was very to the point and very brief and right, at it. The reason that I was there was research. So everybody knows this, whether it's internal or external. Okay. So you don't need to explain how research is done, what it means, and so on and so forth. Okay. So tip number one, once you finish writing something, sit down and take a look at it, and then go through the sentence and cut out as many words as you can until the sentence doesn't make sense anymore. And then put that last one back to be judicious in your writing. Number two, do not waste any verbiage explaining what research means or what this author said or didn't say. That's why you are there. Okay. All right. Those are the first two. Next. Let me switch to somebody else's paper. Okay. Okay, so we'll just take it from the top. It has come to my attention that research regarding backcountry's reception and position in the market is lacking. Okay, first, now number three, be very careful in your word choices. Be very, very careful in how you use or don't use things like demonstrative pronouns. This, these, those, that. Be very careful about all the things that precede, if you use the word this, that precede the this. So there's no confusion by your audience as to what you're talking about. So for instance, I'm now reading from somebody else's paper. We'll go back to that, when I was just reading a second. Our new client, Backcountry, an online retailer specializing in outdoor gear and apparel, seems to be having a difficult time thriving in an increasingly online world. With only 9 brick and mortar locations, Backcountry primarily exists in the online world. This lag in media literacy. Okay, what media literacy? You haven't mentioned media literacy in the 2 above sentences. You've talked about the difference between, the ratio of brick and mortar to online. Okay, avoid ambiguous language. Now that's hard to catch for you as a reader, but you might have it that somebody else reads your stuff and say, hey, really give me the business, really, really tear down on this. Okay. So that's number 4. Oh, excuse me, number 3. All right. Let me go back to the paper that I was just reading. Okay. It's come to my attention that research regarding backcountry reception and position in the market is lacking. To structure a successful campaign, we must emphasize to our client the need for more market research, incorporating quantitative and qualitative research methods. Below is my rationale. All right. After consumer backlash from several lawsuits that Backcountry.com launched against smaller non-competitors regarding the highly used term backcountry. Okay, that's good, but be specific. What lawsuits? Okay, you can say copyright. All right, breach of copyright for using the term backcountry. All right, the online outdoor activity supplier experienced a plummet in sales due to consumer outrage and backlash. Okay, good. Here's item number 4. If you point out either, and wink, wink, here's a hint for this coming assignment. If you point out either a strength or a weakness within the company, be specific. So if you say, well, one of their weaknesses is their declining sales. Okay, decline by how much? How much, and I don't want you out paying for research and doing these, okay? But to your best, the best of your ability to suss out what has been their decline. What have they lost? Okay, you say sales plummet. From what to what? Okay. So continuing. With this said, I'm jumping down in the paper. CSC Generation is backed by at least 13 investors, including Panasonic. So you know what? Let's go up one sentence. Based on patterns observed in the behavior of other equity firms, David Politis suspects Backcountry.com may be sold in 3 or more years by CSC. Founded in 2016, CSC Generations is still a relatively new company. With this said, okay, what does that mean? What's the importance of CSC being new? How does that relate to whether Backcountry will be sold or not? Okay. And then the author here goes on to write, with that said, CSC is backed by at least 13 investors, including Panasonic and the CEO of Wayfair. According to LexisNexis, CSC generates around $890 million in annual revenue. Okay. How does this relate to the needs for Backcountry? What does it tell you about the state that the company is in? Be specific. All right. So that's point number 4. Okay. And then finally, point number 5. And this is, I see this a lot. Okay. This is something that you must fight the urge not to take a position. All right. Now you can say, based on the best data available and the research that I did, this is what I conclude. Avoid ambiguity. Let me give you an example. So here I'm reading from someone else's paper. Our new client, Backcountry, an online retailer specializing in outdoor gear and apparel, seems to be having a difficult time thriving in an increasingly online world. Okay, seems? Do you mean seems in the sense that it is having a difficult time, or as the word is used and defined, seems means the appearance of something, but not actually the something. There seems to be something knocking, seems to be something in the doorway. There seems to be a phantom rising from, the marsh. All right. Here again from this paper. Backcountry is on all major social media network sites. They have 1.1 million followers on Facebook, blah, 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 on Instagram, on X, followers on TikTok, and blank, blank, blank subscribers on YouTube. Their engagement is sporadic. Okay. Again, ambiguity. So they got all these followers. So how did they get 1.1 million followers on Facebook that's a lot of followers with sporadic engagement? A few videos have gone viral on most platforms, but that is not the norm for their content. Okay, great. How do you know? Just say it in the next sentence. Users who do engage are positive. They seem to be running a few campaigns. For example, in December, they ran a series on gifting their products. This was one of the clearest campaign series they were running, though it got little engagement. They seem to be doing a Venture Beyond campaign. They seem mean they're giving the appearance that they're doing the campaign, or they're actually doing the campaign. Do you understand? Now, some of that might be just, you not thinking a lot about language, specificity of language. That's why we're here. Okay. Some of it might be the tendency, the hesitation that I've noticed among students to take a position. If you want to hang on to your job, unless your job is the I don't know person, you've got to take a position. Okay. So to go through those 5 things again, number 1, think about word economy. Read through what you write and take out every word that you can until the sentence doesn't make sense, and then put that last word back. Avoid, explanation of what things are, like defining research and then going on for 2 or 3 sentences about what research means. You don't need it. Everybody there understands. Now, if you're going to recommend a specific type of research, say quantitative as opposed to qualitative, 3-4 words, maybe 1 sentence max, so 15 to 30. that makes the distinction between the two. So people go, oh yeah, okay, we understand. You know, if there happens to be anybody in the room that doesn't understand the difference between the two, but you don't have to, you know, you're not teaching a class. So, you know, make that sort of mental switch, okay, if you will. Be careful in the use, and this sort of, you know, links to number one. Be careful in the use of words, especially demonstrative pronouns. This, that, it, that. Be very careful in what you said the two sentences before. See, the tendency we have is that we, you know, we're thinking in our own heads. We're thinking about what the thing is. All right. But nobody else is in our own heads. It's just us. Okay. No, and so that's number three. Number four, be specific in citing data to make your point. So if you say sales have slumped, in the best of your ability to determine, well, how much of sales slumped? Give a number. And if you can't, you know, if you say, hey, and the numbers have been hidden, and we just have the aggregate, you know, this is their reported revenue from this quarter, and this is what it is this quarter. Great. Just say so. And then finally, number five, be resolute, be definitive. And you can say, you know, based on my best research, this is what I conclude. Avoid seems, I think, could be, it's this, it's that. Unless you're getting paid to be the I don't know person, be definitive. Okay? So change those things in this next assignment, presentation number 2, and I know you're going to work out well. And of course, if you have any questions about a remark that I made or something that I didn't, you know, a score that I gave, I am here for you. Okay, you can always reach out to me and we can spend some time together, or just, you know, if you prefer an email, we can do that. All right, everybody, that's the end of the second video. Have a great week, and I'll see you on Canvas. Bye-bye.